Okay, we've been sent a case, a dentulous site, tooth number 14. We want to take a closer look at this. Before we start looking at our implant plan, let's go ahead and take a closer look at our CEREC data here. And I always like to start there just to take a look at the various aspects of it. Okay, so let's go ahead and hide the implant so we're not looking at that. So by the way, if you ever want to hide anything, like if you want to get rid of the lines, you click this button. Get rid of any findings, the implant, you can show or hide the implant using this button, and same with the abutments and the sleeves. And this is a request license button. So if we take a look at this, what I'm looking for and evaluating in my CEREC plan is I'm a little bit of a stickler about having a CEREC plan pretty close to ideal. And in looking at this, it looks very nice. Um, the central groove seems to be in the right position, and the bigger question is going to be right in here, and that looks pretty good. The only critique I can make to this is that in an ideal world, when we design our CEREC, I don't know where the tissue is on this one, but it looks like the margin should probably be more, uh, probably to about right here. So remember to draw your circle to about right here. So that we can get a better idea of where the implant is going to come out of the tissue. So it's the only critique I have on that. So let's actually just take a closer look at that. I'll remove the restoration. So yes, so we can see here that our restoration is drawn. Um, so here's where I would have drawn my restoration margin. Sorry. Here's where I would have drawn my restoration margin right here on this. And where we actually drew it was up here. So we can see there's probably about a 2 millimeter extension there. So now let's go ahead and take a look at the implant plan. And here's our implant, and I can see some of the concerns here. We have a sinus that's pneumatized. We also looks to be some type of infection or some kind of residual layer going on in the sinus there. So let's again, let's hide the implant and let's take a look at our site. And I'm going to go ahead and um, hide our CEREC data actually. Actually, I'll leave that there. So if I do my drawing tools again, what I would like to do is draw out my bone. It looks like my bone is right there. Well, probably err more right there. That's my bone. There's my sinus right there. So really, what I'm looking at here is this area for my implant. As we know, the central groove of the lower, the implant itself, the center of the implant should probably point down towards this buccal cusp. Again, we'll have some CEREC data here to help us. So that's the area that we're looking at to be able to work with. So here is our implant plan, and let me go ahead and put our restoration back in there. We've already approved that the restoration is good. So the first thing that I notice is that our implant is coming out through the lingual of the tooth. So ideally what I would do here is go ahead and move the implant a little bit more to come out closer to the central groove. I think the central groove may be off just a little bit here. You can see the buccal is quite much thinner than the lingual. So if anything, I'd err to be about right in here. And you can still see that we still have bone height here is good, and we still have the implant well in bone. We'll deal with the sinus issue here in a second. So the next thing I'm going to look at that I noticed here was that if we look here in our axial view, we can see that this implant is quite a bit closer to the mesial than to the distal. So, and the other thing that, so we can correct that by simply tilting the implant towards the mesial tooth, and that'll move the long axis over to the distal, and now we have our implant better centered in our tooth. And the other benefit of this, if we noticed here, was here we can see our lower teeth are pointed downwards. So as we bring this over, we're also going to level our occlusal plane at the same time to give us a more harmonious occlusal scheme there. So there we go. Now the bigger question in this, and the big question that was asked here, is more about the sinus. Um, I'm personally, I have not used the Megagen Any Ridge. I do know that it's a very good implant that's nice and aggressive. This will bump up against the floor of the sinus. So what I would recommend in this case is drilling a little bit short and doing a small osteotome, pushing up the sinus a little bit, pack a little bone in there, and then drive the implant in. Um, I would consider maybe going to a 5 by 7 millimeter implant here. I'm a little concerned about the width of this implant maybe being too wide here on the buccal. Again, I don't have personal experience with this particular implant, but I believe a 5 by 7 would be good. And then truthfully, the 6 by 7 should work as well. The bigger issue I have with the 6 by 7 is if we look here, to be able to place this implant, we need to drill out that much bone so that the threads can engage. Whereas with the 5 millimeter implant, I could actually drill out less bone because I have more engaging threads there. So just some food for thought. Again, the 6 by 7 would be fine there. I'm not aware that Megagen has a guided implant system, so I cannot put the sleeve in here. So that would be the only other thing I would check would be the sleeve position. So hopefully this makes sense. You definitely want to check into the origin of this issue in the sinus. It may be an issue where you want to have the patient checked out by ENT or maybe put some on antibiotic treatment or something to clear out whatever may be going on prior to placing the implant, especially given that we may be doing a sinus bump in the area. I'd like to see a more clear sinus. So in fact, we can take a look here. We can see the distinct difference between the two sinuses. And it looks like there's something going on, some type of foreign body that may be causing that right here. So I don't know when this tooth was taken out, if it had endo, if there's a little puff or a sealer left over from the endo, or something that may be causing that. I would certainly have that a closer evaluation of that prior to doing any treatment. Again, thank you very much.